Welcome to the Healing Manifest, the one true place for you to learn into becoming your best self. Each week we're going to have a new guest that we bring on to share their stories, to teach you new ways to help you on your journey, as well as we're going to have tidbits for you as well. This has been an amazing journey for us so far, so if you've enjoyed the journey, you enjoy the episodes that we have, only thing that I ask of you guys, I'll never put this behind a paywall. I only ask for a like, share, or a comment below. Subscribe if you can. The more subscription, the more these things happen, the more it helps with the algorithm for us to grow and get bigger, more enhanced, as well as more in-depth videos for you as well. Today, we have an amazing creative photographer, videographer, has worked through Toronto as well as LA, has worked with the likes of EverythingOshaun, Nipsey Hussle. Oh my goodness, I know I'm going to forget the immense amount of names she's worked with. Wiz Khalifa, with the 1500 studio, and amazingly with her mentor and someone who I looked up to a lot when I was music producing, iLLMind. Please give it up for my guest here today, Ashley.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. And I know of your journey to be like, I'm just grateful to have you here. I mean, like, for the people who this is their first time being introduced to you, just feel free and just walk us through your journey of starting in photography, like, to you being here right now.
Okay. Wow, this could be hours, so I'm going to try to condense it. To I mean, I've had a camera in my hand since I was like 10 years old. And it was always just something about capturing nostalgia, like the emotion of that. I always wanted to remember certain moments, like people that will flee in and out of your life or activities, etc. And in high school, I started bombarding Aaron A., who is an amazing Canadian director, through Instagram and YouTube and all the different comments when he was on a run with like Down with Webster, Nelly Furtado, a lot of those Canadian staple artists. And yeah, just his biggest fan, wanting to be on set with him. And when I was 14, I shadowed him on a bunch of different music videos through the summer one year. And just seeing that collective consciousness of what happens when like a full team of creatives gets together, seeing the behind the scenes of the artists executing their vision through the lens of the director, Aaron himself just being such an incredible creative, that was sort of what sparked that door opening for me, where I was like, okay, I want to do this as my full-time thing. I don't know what else I'd want to do with my life except just story tell through this medium.
Honestly, what I love with that is like with you starting with that is like one thing I find that's so consistent with so much of the people that are on here, people that I talk with, it's just how natural it came for you and how you just listen to your instinct of being like, the camera just came in front of me. I enjoy this. I'm putting myself in these positions, and it's just not you forcing, it's you just loving it and just being obsessed with me, like, I want to do this, I'm gonna get this, get that.
Yeah, the passion was always at the forefront. Like, I never had the concept when I was younger, because I went to Humber for film production, and even as I was in Humber, I didn't have the concept of, I could make a lot of money off of this, because I never attached that sort of gain to creating things. I was literally just doing it for the passion of it. And as a people person, the human behavior aspects that come into, like, journalism comes into it. There's so many different things that come into like birthing these visual projects that it's crazy. I never wanted to be like a Hollywood director. I was just a kid that was so happy to have a camera in her hand that helped her get to tell stories for so many different types of people. So
it's like from there you got the recognition of, okay, I'm good at this. And then you start going into school and it's like, okay, if I had to go to school for something, I'm going to go for something I'm good at and I enjoy. And that's where pieces came for you from there. And you go from there to where you're working with like people within the city as well. And even that journey for yourself to go from there and where it took you from there in your journey, like how would you explain that part there?
So when I finished film school, I was freelancing full time, and it went from some days were with Madrock, or back then Fila TV is used to be called pop rock. And so I did an internship at the end of my Humber program. And like Karina Evans was also in the office at that time, and like Director X is in and out. And I was so young and around that sort of caliber of mind and just like intellectual property. And this was before iLLMind. So I feel from a very young age, I was lucky that like those were the conversations that I would walk in on boardroom meetings and stuff. And those were the like types of minds I was around. So yeah, after that internship, I was doing a lot of BTS work for Mad Rock. My very first big BTS gig was the Come Through and Chill music video with Miguel and J. Cole.
Wow.
And it's so crazy because I look back at that version of me and I still carry a lot of that energy through to today. But I didn't do any research on... I listened to Cole a lot, but Miguel, not really. I didn't do any research on him either. And I look back and I'm like, I'm the biggest fan of him now after that day with him, because I think he knew that I was just starting out in the industry and so green. And I didn't, every time we were one-on-one and I was taking pictures of him, I never used the opportunity to talk about, like, now I know he's into meditation. He's into all the wellness things that I am. I would have loved to talk to him about that. But instead I was so green. I was like, oh, like, Teehee, they have Fiji apples on set for us. Like, do you like Fiji apples or do you prefer, like, so funny. But I still carry some of those aspects with me because I also learned, like, a lot of artists just want to have a very normal conversation. Like, if you come on too strong in some of those settings,
it's like, I know you.
Yes.
It's like,
and
always going to be strong.
And it changes the frequency. Like, now they're not going to be as relaxed around you. So it's a balance between doing your research ahead of time, but also kind of embracing a bit of that naivety, and just remembering that everyone is a person. But anyway, to pivot back, so lots of BTS days with Mad Rock. So doing all their social assets when it comes to the behind the scenes, obviously, of what is happening on the music video days. And there were some other BTS with Wiz Khalifa. So the late night messages, music video set, some stuff with Jessie Reyez, Betta LeMay with Ultra Music. The Runners, Every Day I'm Hustling.
Oh, I know the Runners.
So they were in a group called Blackjack for a little bit. They came up here to shoot some stuff with Mad Rock, and that was really cool, like bonding with Maine and Andrew. And from there, I got a random call. I think my name at that point has started circulating through Sony. And then iLLMind has his Roseville Music Group that's part of like the Sony umbrella, because his manager, Andrew Master, is part of the Sony family. And I just got a cold call as like a 19-year-old, saying like, hello, you know, we've heard your name circulating and we're curious if we can hire you. What would your rates be as a videographer for iLLMind, the producer? He's coming to town to do a producer camp in Toronto for the first time. He's been doing these camps called Pass the Aux, and they were explaining it to me. And I just had no idea that I was literally about to step into my next chapter, but I was just so green and spunky, and I was like, yeah, of course. And in my head, I'm like, I should probably look up iLLMind, but yet again, I didn't. And then got down there, and it was at the old Sandbox Studios when they were at like Carlaw, like in the beaches area. They've clearly since then, like Rooks and everyone has expanded, but yeah, I just remember capturing the vibes that night, and I got home and thought, wow, I really liked the energy and how like community based this producer iLLMind was. I feel like doing an edit just for the sake of editing, because again, I was so passionate about it, and they weren't expecting me to whip together like a 5-minute recap episode. And they loved it so much that the very next day they were like, we're looking for an editor for our series called Blapcam, and he also does the Blap podcast. Would you like to be our editor? And then from that, it was just off to the races. And we were locked in for years after that. So
that's amazing. And like you said, it's just enjoying the journey, letting things happen. But at the same time, as things are happening, you're just carrying your passion with you. You're carrying that like love for photography with you everywhere you go. Where you didn't have to do that recap.
No,
you were just enjoying that moment so much. You're just like, let me just do this.
100%.
See what happens, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, you're here talking about like come through and chill and late night messages, and I'm like, I remember listening to that album or watching the music video and just be like, man, this is so dope. Like, this music's crazy. And you're literally right there. Like, you're right there.
Yeah.
Right there. How is it, like, I can only imagine for you, like, discussing it, like, even in your own personal life, like, when you meet people, then it's like, they get to find out, like, you're the one who was maybe not the one that's, like, in front of the camera, like, directing that video per se, but you were still around that atmosphere. How it's like for you when people come around you now.
So you would think, I guess, that there would be a big shift. It depends on where I am. I find that I'm very well received when I talk about certain accolades in LA and like New York City and the work I've done in Atlanta. Coming back home to Toronto the past year has been interesting because it's not the same type of receptive vibration. I don't know if that's a whole other topic in itself, but it's...
I get what you mean, but we can...
Yeah, because that whole saying of like, you have to leave home to kind of achieve something, and then when you come back, things are different. I can't tell if is it the city and the vibration here post-pandemic different, or is it me that's also very different because I just did 4 years in Los Angeles and obviously grew immensely day to day there. And now I'm coming back to a place that was once familiar, but it doesn't feel familiar anymore. But yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. I guess it just really depends on the type of groups that I'm with. On how it's perceived and received.
And honestly, with what you're saying, like, it's gonna honestly be a mix of both. One, it's your evolution, but the way the pandemic just changed everything for everyone entirely, right? And
it hit here way harder than the States. And so I recognize that too, that it's a very different climate here now compared to what I knew Toronto to be before I moved, because I moved in the thick of it in 2020 and just took a risk and said, this might be crazy to move to America right now, but I also don't want to say no to this opportunity with 1,500.
Like you have to do this at the same time.
Yeah.
And like, and it still answers the question, because it's like, it's one of those things, as we all grow in our fields, it's almost as if sometimes energy shifts around us of the people of what they expect of us or what they want from us as well. And it seems for yourself, and a lot of people don't know, it's like you get a lot of the opportunities just being natural, being yourself.
Yeah.
But then I find there's sometimes where it's like, when now you're the person people are coming to now, like, oh, like, you know, I want to learn from you, I want to do this from you. There is that difference in energy, and almost to use for a term there, of how people approach you. As like, wonder if there's like difference in how people approach you, where you're like, I don't know about working with this person, but versus I'm okay working with this person. And sometimes it's just how they approach you sometimes.
No, it's true. I'm a lot pickier now with the types of projects I take on, and when it comes to my freelance clients that I will help brand. And I love working with independent artists because, again, the types of rooms I was in and the things that I've seen at certain label levels. And honestly, just being the editor of Blapcam through iLLMind for, I think that would have been 3 years of editing every single week episodes. And again, I'm not even a music producer or engineer. I'm just somebody that is picking up on all the different topics. And after everything I learned through iLLMind, and like I said, just different label conversations, I love when independent artists now, especially like certain people I'm working with in Toronto, have the vulnerability to just know, like, okay, if I'm just open and vulnerable with this woman, like she can help guide me in the right way. A lot of the time though, people can't meet you in vulnerability. So one of the biggest things I look for when I'm helping brand people is like, are you going to meet me in that same transparent, vulnerable arena? Because if your ego and other things are already setting the tone, I don't have time for that. Wall. Yeah, like
and so try and break down that wall for you. I could imagine it's like, I'm trying to get to know you and feel comfortable in myself, and you're building this wall and it's preventing me from doing the things. And you have the experience of realizing too sometimes where it's like people who build this wall sometimes it's because they don't even understand themselves.
100%.
And you have to try to understand this person, and it's like,
how am I going to brand you if you don't know you, right?
Because next thing you know, like the brand that they're trying to build, it's a whole different brand next week, because it's like, okay, I have no clue what's going on anymore, right? And like you said, you gained so much experience being in the industry, being around it, to recognize, trying not to, set off YouTube censors here about you. Crap from bull crap.
Yeah.
Truth from false, right?
Yeah. And even people having discipline, like I've noticed a lot of like the top type of minds that I was around, they have a lot of discipline in their personal lives and lifestyle and habits. And then that ripple affected me to have the same type of discipline. So again, when it comes to the chapter I'm in now of choosing new people to work with, I love to have, people might think it doesn't have to do with music, but everything encompasses everything, and you're creating from that space that you are building in your home environment. So I love working with people that have like discipline in their lives and like commitment to spirit and all these other things, because it all comes together and it makes a difference when you're trying to create something and like, as I mentioned, like just birth a project into the world if they're able to have like
the passions at least.
Yeah.
And like, it seems like a lot of what you learn from in that experience, it's one, the discipline for yourself, but it's like you also start to read and see things differently with people as well, because it's like you start to see things yourself, like, okay, this is the real discipline, this is that right there. What else would you say you learned from that experience outside of like the discipline factor of being in those rooms? Like, what would you say you learned?
I mean, I definitely learned, gosh, I don't even know where to begin, because now my mind is like, you learned a lot. How much our words hold power, I think, is a huge thing. And like they call it like spelling for a reason, because you're like kind of casting spells every time you're speaking, right? So when it comes to that, and just the language that I'm using and the language of the people I was around, again, a lot of it came from working with iLLMind in 1500. Like certain rooms that you're in, you're picking up on a different vibration of the tongue, and that was a huge lesson for me, because it was a level of that I didn't see. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist in Toronto, but the level that I left Toronto at, I didn't see it in these rooms too much. And then as soon as I got to LA and just kind of dove in the deep end, like yet again, I did not really do my research on 1500 before all of a sudden I'm part of their creative directing team, and I'm at the Sound Academy every day. And week to week, it's different sessions between Gunna or Busta Rhymes or Ashanti or St. John, and seeing how Rance would be like a chameleon depending on who's in the room with him and the type of like language he would speak was so inspiring to me, and helped me realize that if I'm trying to get to that vibration myself, I have to really be aware of like the words I'm using and how they're going to be perceived depending on the type of like person I'm speaking with. You know what I mean? It's
almost like this knowledge of people.
Yes.
That you have to have.
Human behavior was such a thing. Like that was part of their classes. They teach their students a lot about human behavior, which again seems, some people might have like a wall up and think, I'm here to learn music and production from these Grammy winners. Why am I learning about human behavior? But if you don't go into it with that type of ego, again, I'm not even a music maker, but I learned so much just from being in those rooms and filming those rooms, because the language we're speaking is casting spells all the time and helping us create the reality that we want. So we have to be so careful about, even if you're joking about how you may look that day, or if you're joking to a friend about, I did this to myself. I, at one point, had a weird phase where I kept saying like, I'm too broke for this, and I'm so broke. I literally ended up on food stamps months later because I kept speaking that shit. I wasn't actually broke when I was talking like that. I don't know where the influence of it came from, but it was such a lesson to me. And like, I can look back now and know that a huge role in why I ended up in the system and on food stamps for like that tiny little period was I was like manifesting that by speaking like that, you know?
It's like you're literally coaching your mind.
Yeah.
Because when you're constantly saying, because I get what you're saying, because like if you keep saying to yourself, I'm too poor, I'm too broke, all you want to look up is what's poor, what's broke, what is that life like? You start to dim your light into being okay with this. Because, like you said, you're not giving yourself this light to see what's beyond. And literally, it's so, like, I appreciate you so much for being on here and speaking this, because this is a lot of where Healing Manifest came from. Like, literally recognizing that the biggest thing of what is going to be the biggest shift in our life, it's how you speak with yourself. How you speak with yourself, and from there, how you speak with people. And if you are constantly saying to yourself, I want to be at this position in my life, but you live your way in a whole different way from that, you'll never see. This person doesn't just happen overnight. This person happens now.
Absolutely. But the whole fake it till you make it mantra, I didn't understand it for a while. At first, I just thought, okay, like, but why would you want to fake something? But it's not about faking it. It's about, if you really want to be in those rooms and be touching that type of money and be working with those types of people,
get used to it now.
Exactly. Start acting like that's who you are and embody that shit, because then you will naturally vibrate towards all of that. Like, again, I in no way thought that by working with iLLMind, it would ripple into me working with all the different labels and artists that I was in LA. But because every time I was in those rooms with iLLMind, I just embodied the like most courageous, positive person I could. And then that rippled into my personal life too. Like the type of friendships I have now, I don't think high school me would have ever thought I would have such like divine feminine and masculine energies around me, and yet I'm so proud of the tribe I have to support me and lean on, because I've just embodied that. And we have to like every day like kind of recalibrate our brain to what we're trying to attract, right?
And like those are two big things that you really learn from the experience: the discipline, the wording that you use as well, how you're approaching with these words. And it seems like a lot of the biggest things that you learn, it ends up being almost outside of the creative part. And it's like, I always say, it's like when it comes to it, it's like it's 80% business, 20% the art of it. And you have an amazing art style, let me make it clear. Like when I look through your portfolio, there's a lot of focus on precision, as well as the colors that are in the room, and even down to when you have things that are in black and white, the way that the feeling is within those. Like I've seen black and white photos, different artists, and it takes someone who's really good to really get a really nice like black and white shot. So like
Thank you.
Do an amazing job with it. But I think what you bring in when you're discussing, you bring a lot of those business, those interpersonal aspects that are very important. And I guess the last thing I do want to ask before I go from here is, what are things, if you were to just noticing everything that you've experienced, for the photographers, videographers, anyone really in media and the arts who they want to grow in their position, they're not sure what's going on, what would be your advice for them with intermingling and getting themselves in rooms even?
Yeah, because the technical honestly isn't the biggest thing. And again, I feel like maybe me 5 years ago would be like, oh, you gotta put in your hours, you gotta be stuck to your computer. And that is part of it. But I also feel like we're in an age now where a lot of people, like everyone's kind of a self-proclaimed content director, and the technology just makes it kind of, I don't want to say easier, but it's more accessible now. So I don't think it has anything to do with, oh, if you want to go to LA and do this, you have to shoot every single day. a lot of it does come back to just mindset, and even the books you read, the type of things that you expose yourself to on your timeline. Like, who are you following? Are you actually getting influenced by these influencers? If not, unfollow them. Your diet, I don't know. Yeah. I have so many, like your diet and like the types of herbs or adaptogens you're willing to work with as well. Like everything that's going to help you just have more of a clear vessel to have that connection to spirit. Because at the end of the day, like we're all on our own individual journeys, but I found prayer and meditation was a huge part of me getting into rooms that I got into as well. And journaling. Like, it trips me out when I read back some of the journal entries I had in, it was like March 2020. The pandemic had just started. I was actually already in LA. I flew out February 2020 for Grammy week with iLLMind, and he was in there with TDE and Dreamville and all these different labels. And I took a one-way because I knew something in me, and God just knew, like, okay, it's time for her to start her LA journey. And I worked only a week at the 1500 Sound Academy in March before the pandemic started. And what took over me was fear of listening to fucking Trudeau and everyone say, like, you got to get home. Like, we're shutting down. There's a pandemic. And so I left. I like ended my lease at my North Hollywood apartment. And I remember, because again, like the 1500 members are so divinely guided and anointed. And I remember telling them, you know, there's a pandemic starting. I have to go home. Like, I'm devastated. And they kind of just had this smirk and wink about it of, are you sure? Like, you're here now. Like, have some faith and trust that, like, where your new family will protect you. And I just let the fear kind of win and moved back home. But then from the time I moved back and was stuck inside, and all of us are stuck inside, the city shut down. The grocery stores are scary because everyone's in hazmat suits in the grocery stores. I was journaling every single day from then until I made the move again in October 2020. About what my life was going to look like, about what it would smell like when I woke up in the morning, about what the view was going to be like from my bedroom, looking at the palm trees, the types of friends I was going to have, the types of music I was going to listen to. And it's so trippy to look back now at that October 2020 move, because when I read those entries, that's what happened. Like everything I wrote down and spoke about is what manifested. So that's my long-winded way of saying to anybody who's trying to achieve certain goals, like, be super concise about what you want it to look like and feel like, and write it down and talk about it with conviction, because it's just the natural order that will happen. If it's meant for you, it'll be for you, and like, it'll find you.
And, you know, I say it a lot of myself of what you're saying is, when you have that focus, when you manifest it out there, God will help direct you to that point. You meditate, you pray, and it helps so much. And I didn't even expect you to finish in that way, and I'm so grateful for it, because it brings so much of what I want to bring to light. And
Perfect.
I just want to thank you so much for being on here. And please, her socials are going to be down below, but please, everywhere that people can find you, let them know.
I think Ashley Harris captures across the board. I think, .com.
Website, everything.
Instagram. I'm not too big on TikTok, but you can find me on there too.
Please make sure to follow her. Thank you guys so much for listening. This is a great episode. Peace.